I wanted to jump on before our book club today to show you the book that we're talking about. It's called Heal Your Heart from Within. And the reason I'm doing this is because I chose to pin Teresa when we were recording, which means I am a disembodied voice. Now, that's perfectly fine. You know what I look like, but it might feel a little weird. And when I'm showing you the book, I wanted to get on and show it you before. So here we are. We've got Teresa Palmer. This is a really important video to watch and to share with other people that you know have got heart problems. The book was $11.99. And I don't know what that is in pound at the moment or in your currency, but it's not an expensive book. It's an easy read book. It's a little bit technical in the beginning, but that's important information, and it's beautifully written, so it's not going to be difficult for you to understand. And then she goes on to all sorts of practices that you can use to heal your heart. So I'm going to say nothing more, and just if you bear with me 1 minute, I'm going to start the interview with Teresa Palmer. Thank you. Hello and welcome to our second book club. I'm going to introduce you to the lady who wrote this book. She's a fellow nurse. It's Teresa, and she's here on the screen. And Teresa and I met through Hay House, and then for a year joined together in an author, I suppose we'd call it a book group or a support group. And because Teresa had already written this amazing book, so therefore she was able to support us and offer us some great advice for all of us fledgling authors. So Teresa, thank you so much for joining us on our second book club. I love your book. I bought it immediately that it was out again. And I'd really like, if I might, if you'll indulge me, just to read a little bit about the foreword. This was by Andre Seltzer, and I'd really like you to tell me a little bit more about Andre and your connection, but I'd really like for everybody else to hear this. This book is truly cutting edge as it brings a whole new perspective on that most important and unique part of our body, the heart. So here, our heart, we've all got one. We would not be alive without it. We know now it's not just a mechanical pump, but also the seat of many of our emotions, thoughts, and even creativity. So Teresa, I mean, that is a wonderful thing to start your book, Heal Your Heart from Within. So I'm going to hand over to you, ask you to tell us what inspired you to write this book, and also maybe tell us a little bit about Andre as well and your connection.
Okay.
So welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for having me today, Susie. It's a pleasure to be here. My book actually started 20 years ago when I started my own spiritual journey. And I've been a nurse. My expertise has always been, for the first 10 years of my career, my expertise, I would say, would be cardiology, because I was trained in Western medicine, Western nursing. I worked in cardiac surgery, and it was a very arrogant field. We were told in no uncertain terms that we fixed people, we healed people, we were the ones. People came to us. Without us, they would have no life. So for 10 years, that's how I practiced. I then had the opportunity to go on a medical mission to a developing country. And while there, a couple things happened along with, I started working with Sri Dharma Mitra, who is a spiritual teacher, the rock of yoga. He's brought Eastern and Western yoga together. And while I was in Romania, I had the chance to connect with some children that every morning started their day off with, I call it like a meditation or a mantra. They would say every in their language, which was Romanian, every cell in my body is happy because I'm at peace in my heart. And they would place their hands on their heart, and then they would bow to each other, and then they would hold hands and repeat that, and then they would start their school day. So these children, to me, had a connection to their heart that at the time I really didn't know that it existed. The more I spoke to the children, the more I spoke to other Romanians, I found out they all have this connection. This is how they all start their morning because they see the heart as the seat of the soul and they see the heart as the healer within. That on another medical mission, I was in a developing country not too long after that, and a local monk, we were near a monastery, a local monk had a heart attack, collapsed at the door. He was still conscious. We had to drive him 65 miles to the hospital in a car.
Wow.
And I believed he was going to die. Now, I didn't tell him this, but of course he picked up on it. It was probably written all over my face. And he told me he was not going to die, that this was just an obstacle and he would get past it. Of course, I thought he was a little crazy because on the EKG, which is a tracing of the heart, it said his heart was damaged. And a damaged heart sometimes does not recover. And that's how I saw him, as the damage being more extensive. We get to the hospital, which literally had nothing in it. It had cows and pigs and horses grazing outside the hospital. It wasn't very technically advanced. The ER doctors confirmed that there wasn't much that could be done. He was given a choice. He could either stay in the hospital or go back to the monastery. He chose to go back to the monastery and take me with him. And he said two reasons. He said, one, because I was an expert in cardiology. And if he were indeed ill, he could use my help. But more importantly, he said, I needed a lesson in healing and how who we are determines how we are. And he said, you see yourself as a healer. I'm meaning him. I'm the healer. You're not. And you need to learn that lesson. And he said, I plan to teach you that lesson tonight. Well, I thought he was going to die. Spent the night with him, fell asleep for a little bit. In the morning, I woke up and he was eating breakfast. I couldn't believe it. Vital signs were stable, heart rate was stable. And, he turned to me and he said, can you tell me what happened? Why am I sitting up in bed? And why am I looking good? And I didn't know what to say. So I just said, you defied science. And he said, no, I didn't defy anything. He said, I defied other perceptions that I was going to die. And yours was the major one. He said, I know I could heal. I'm healing from my heart. He said, I have the power to heal. And he said, you have the power to heal. Nobody could take that away from you. He said, what you are trying to do and what a lot of medicine has tried to do over many years is to take that power away from people.
Yeah.
He said, and I hope when you leave here that you will look at what I've said and that you would hold this in your heart and that you will make it your intention to practice medicine and to practice cardiac care from your heart and helping people heal, not being the healer. And that was really a lot to take in. And I didn't know if I believed it, although I saw him improve. I was there for a few months. I saw him make a miraculous recovery. And when I got back to the United States and went back into cardiac surgery at the time, I had a hard time practicing cardiac surgery because I knew I was no longer the one that quote unquote fixed and healed people.
Mhm.
So I started working with people on a different level, keeping it quiet because it was not Western medicine.
Yeah.
So when I would tell people to believe in themselves, have the intention they were going to heal, work on them with meditation, with breath work, with changing the inner landscape of who they thought they were, and practicing compassion, gratitude, the things, forgiveness, resilience, the things I saw with the people and the children of Romania, it changed everything. And in 2020 was my opportunity to really bring it to the world because the entire world was in fear
Yeah.
and people had to get out of that fear. I wasn't going to go into COVID at all. That was not what I ever felt my mission was, whatever happened, whatever went on, I was not involved with it. I took care of people with it,
Of course.
but I was not getting involved with any arguments, with anything. So my way of helping people was, you need to learn to take care of yourself, and this is how we can do it. Whether or not they could read the book. My patients could work with me if they wanted to do that. That's fine. So I thought the best way to do it was really publicize, get a book out there. And one of my patients confirmed that when she walked in and said to me, I've been coming here for 15 years and I know what you teach. I didn't always believe it, but I need some help now and you need to write a book because you need to get that message out to the world.
Yeah.
And that's how the book was created. It was originally created as Empowered for Well-Being.
Okay, right.
And then I decided to change the title when I had done for Hay House, I had done a book proposal.
Right.
And I guess it was during one of the live chats, I had said something about empowered, and they said that was kind of vague. So then I changed it to Heal Your Heart from Within.
Right. Excellent. And yes, and I think that's a perfect title, isn't it? Because that's exactly what you're talking about in here. Um, you've said in the prologue, within you is a remarkable power, the power to heal, the power to take charge, and the power to live your best life. It is the power of love. And I think that's absolutely what we all need to hear and to live by. And we do create powerless people as nurses, don't we? And in the medical profession. I've recently had surgery and the power was all within me and given to me by my team, my clinical team, because they can do the physical work, but whether or not it's effective is down to me. Well,
Right.
that's relatively new sort of philosophy, really. Um, so I was quite impressed and actually spoke to my consultant and said, thank you for that. You've given me all the power for this to succeed or to fail. And I think that is the attitude, and certainly the work that I do with people, I always ask them, are they willing to give up that which makes them sick? Because if you're not, then there's a waste of time, waste of yours and my time as nurses, isn't it, really? Yes. Excellent stuff. Um, there's another little story in here about Michael
Oh,
that I think was, when I first read it, I thought, wow, it was heart-wrenching to read it. But that was quite a powerful thing about his intuition, wasn't it? Has
yeah.
that changed the way that you work
Oh,
now?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was one of those things where because I was doing my own spiritual work,
yeah.
I was in tune with intuition. And like I said, I would keep everything quiet. I worked in a hospital in cardiac surgery. Nobody was interested in intuition or anything at that time. It really was fairly new.
Mm.
And I had a patient, and it was always routine that the night before I would go see the patient, get the papers signed, do a physical exam, just go over again what was needed for surgery. Well, I changed the patient's name, of course. I walked into this man's room and he told me that he didn't want to have surgery because he felt certain that he was going to die. And he said his wife didn't believe him, that his wife thought he was scared. And he said, it's not fear. He said, because for 3 days, he said, I've had this feeling that I'm not going to make it out of surgery, that I'm going to die. And he said, I really don't want to have the surgery. He wasn't sure if he wanted to put it off. He just didn't want the surgery. So I told him I believed him because I said, I think everybody knows what goes on. And I certainly don't want you to have surgery if you don't want to. Because at the very least, if you're not on the same page and you don't want something, you're not going to recuperate as well
Yeah.
because there's going to be a lot of doubts, a lot of negativity. Called this heart surgeon who berated me over the telephone. And I mean, this was back in the days when you physically had to pick up a phone
Yeah.
and call somebody. And he's yelling and screaming at me that he made a mistake hiring me. How foolish am I that this isn't science? He's a 43-year-old man with no underlying medical problems. Surgery's only going to be an hour and a half at the most, because all he needs is one bypass. And he said, if you don't go back in that room and stop this foolishness and stop making patients feel foolish. He said, you're feeding into this man's anxiety. And he said, you are making things worse. And he said, if that man doesn't go into surgery tomorrow, you don't have a job. So, and he slammed down the phone and said, don't call me again because this is nonsense. Went back in the room. And I said to the patient, I said, I have a dilemma, but it's your choice what you want to do. Don't let me influence you. I said, the surgeon does not believe a word of what's going on. He is not a believer. I said, he is demanding that I get you to sign these papers or not have a job. I said, I'm just telling you this not to make you feel guilty, but to just let you know where I'm coming from. I believe you. But at the same time, I'm having some doubts because of science. And we kind of talked a little bit. And he said, you know what? He said, my wife wants me to have the surgery. My mother does. I'm the only one that doesn't want to have the surgery. He said, I'm going to sign the papers. And he did. He did his exam. As I was walking out of the room, he said, come back because I need to say goodbye to you now. He said, I know I'm not going to survive tomorrow. He said, he said, please let me say goodbye. And he held my hands and he kissed me on the cheek. He said, I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to make it through surgery. And he said, I'm not going to say anything to my wife because I don't want to upset her at this time of night. The next morning, he goes into surgery at 6:30 a.m. At 6 at 7:15 a.m. I hear a code blue called, which means somebody's heart has stopped. I knew exactly who it was, even though there were 5 operating rooms going, patients much older, more complicated. I knew. I called that room, got verification. I knew he wasn't going to survive. 45 minutes later, the surgeon comes out of the OR and says, if I ever try to talk you into anything again, please don't do it. He said, I've made a terrible mistake. I've killed somebody by not listening to what they wanted. And after that, we both practiced differently because I told him I would never, ever get permission from anybody that had any kind of doubts, regardless of what it was.
Yeah.
And he told me that he would not do surgery on somebody who had any doubts.
Yeah.
So his practice changed because instead of going into a room and saying, I'm Dr. So and so, and we're going to be operating on your heart tomorrow, and blah, blah, blah. It's simple. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. You're going to be fine. Don't worry about it. He would say to the patient, how do you feel about having surgery? Is this something that you really want to have, or do you need more time to think about it?
Yes, I know when I read about Michael, I could have cried, I mean, I've lost my patience, so I understand what it's like. And it's, yeah, it's quite a powerful story, isn't it? That we can trust our intuition. And I think that the more we grow spiritually and personally, the more we're able to actually listen to our hearts, listen to our bodies, and do the right thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
and my heart went out to you as a practitioner, and it's like, oh my goodness, what would have I done in that situation? And I think I'd have done the same as you, Teresa. I'd have concerned myself with my whole career before me, and had he not died, then nobody would have ever known the truth. So yeah.
Yeah. And this was actually before I was really into my spiritual journey and before I saw the miracle of the monk. I mean, that
Really.
would have totally changed me
Yeah.
because at that point, I would have said, I'm not getting the paper signed, you could take your job and I don't care. But at the time, I was up and coming. I was being interviewed in magazines. I was publishing. I was really the first acute care nurse practitioner. And this was a major teaching hospital.
Yeah.
So all eyes were on me. And I wanted to do well.
Mm.
I really wanted to do well. And the only way to do well was to listen to the so called science and
Yeah.
not listen to my heart. So I had to make a choice. And, thankfully, I made it clear to the patient that, the choice was his. And
Yeah.
if he would have said to me, I'm not signing the papers, I never, there would be no way I would get him to sign it.
No.
I think what have happened at that point, the surgeon probably in the middle of the night would have come to the hospital and demanded that he sign the papers. That's
Absolutely.
probably would have happened.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And you've mentioned it already. I need to say that the beginning of the book is very technical and it's really very useful information. And I think that is something people don't understand about physiology. And I think it's so beautifully written that anybody would be able to comprehend what you were saying about the power of the heart. Towards the end, on chapter 8, and there's little meditations throughout, and it's just beautifully organized. It is all about the breath. For breath is life, and if you breathe well, you will live long on earth, which is a Sanskrit proverb. So you're absolutely right. There's little or no attention paid to breathing. Yet, interestingly, I was seeing a post, there's some research about, oh, I forget what to call it, when you have oxygen therapy, essentially,
Oh,
for fibromyalgia. So people are
uh,
getting to grips with the breath. So tell us from a technical, as a clinical perspective, about the value of the breath in relation to the heart and what the connection is, please. It'd be lovely.
well, breathing and heartbeat goes together. The main thing is really if you stop breathing, your heart will stop. If your heart stops, you will stop breathing. So they go together. It may not happen simultaneously, but you can't do one without the other. A beating heart is what sends oxygen in all to the body. And that's why, I've really been talking about the fact that our heart is our superpower. Our breathing is also our superpower for a couple reasons. Number one, you have to get oxygen in. And the only way to do that is through the breath. The oxygen goes through the lungs. There's an exchange of gases. It circulates, circulation through the heart. It goes to all the cells, all the body organs, all the fibers, all the muscles. The second thing, and what I think is more important, even with the breath, is that when you breathe intentionally, you stop the fight or flight mechanism. You stop your anxiety, your worry. It's a temporary fix. But if you're aware of it throughout the day, then when you can control your breathing, you can control your stress.
Yes.
So the heart connects directly to the vagus nerve. So when you inhale in and out, of course, you can't breathe without involving the heart and all the other organs. The body works
So,
together. So that mechanism of breathing, that in and out, okay, also stimulates the vagus nerve.
yeah.
And when you stimulate the vagus nerve, that's our inner peace and calm. That is our parasympathetic nervous system. And that's where we get our peace and calm. The heart also secretes a substance. And the name is too technical, but it smooths the heart muscle. It kind of evens things out with the heart. So sometimes what that means is if you have an irregular heartbeat or your heart jumps because of anxiety and because of worry and anxiety, you also calm that down.
Yeah.
So you go into this peace and tranquility state. Also, when you're breathing, you're getting enough oxygen distributed throughout the body. When you take a shallow breath, of course, oxygen is distributed, but you're not doing it as fully. and you're not giving the cells, the muscles, the organs, all that oxygen, the optimum oxygen that they really need. So again, you're helping keeping your body in balance. It's only when our body gets out of balance that we run into a problem. And there's something heart math goes into a lot with the coherence of the heart beat and the breathing. So if you're aware of your breathing and your heartbeat, you could, as you're focusing on your breathing and your heart rate, what you can do is you can get it to pretty much synchronize. And there was recently an article about that's what horses do automatically without even thinking about it. And that's why horses are so therapeutic in healing,
Yeah. Yeah.
because the heart extends. It's the largest vibrational energetic body and energetic organ in the body. It extends at least 3 feet, maybe more. And that means that anybody in close proximity can feel what you're feeling.
Mm.
And that's why sometimes you're in a workplace or, I always use something like a peaceful demonstration. People
Mm.
are having a peaceful demonstration and all of a sudden all hell breaks loose. And the reason is because somebody's energy changes,
Yeah.
they become hostile,
Mhm.
they become angry, they want to fight. Anybody within a 3 feet radius of them starts to feel that same way. That's a mob mentality. And people don't know why they're feeling that way. They think it's their energy. So they join in on it. And the next thing you know, it could happen in the workplace. One person gets upset over a schedule or something. The next thing you know, you've got 5 people upset when their schedule isn't being affected. So it's all that energetic exchange. And if you could stop and think and say, am I feeling that way or is somebody else feeling that way and I'm feeling the effects of it? It makes a huge difference. So if you're walking or riding a horse, you're in such direct contact
Mm.
that that horse is emanating the coherence, the peace, the tranquility, and it's getting you out of that state of fight or flight. And people with trauma, whether they know it or not, even subconsciously, are always in that fight or flight because it's that trauma that may even be in their subconscious that's still affecting their body, mind, and spirit.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Wonderful. And in terms of the people that are listening, I mean, is there a good way from your perspective how to breathe? Because obviously I wouldn't be here if I wasn't breathing, but is there a better way to actually make my breath match my heartbeat? How do I do that?
Well, the simplest way to do it is I tell people to sit or lay quietly. You could even do it first thing in the morning before you get out of bed. Place your hand on your heart and you'll feel your heart beating. Okay? You start to get into that rhythm because even though everybody has technically the same regular heartbeat, the lub dub, it's still unique to you. How, your heart is unique to you and how it really beats is unique to you. So you pick up on that heartbeat and you go with the flow with the lub dub, the lub dub, the lub dub, feel it. And then with your breathing, start to breathe deeply. So I usually tell people take a big inhale through their nose if they can. If they have a problem nasally, then it would be through the mouth to try to hold that breath just to listen to the heartbeat. If they can, if they can't, then just exhale and exhale deeply through your mouth and really feel the exhale and really feel your heartbeat.
Mm.
Eventually, what will happen is you'll see that it'll start to coincide. That when you take a deep breath, it'll be kind of a lub, and then the dub will be when you let out the breath.
Mm.
But that does take some practice, and it's not absolutely necessary to get that coherence.
Mm.
What you really need to do is just pay attention to your breathing because that calms you down. So if you could just be aware of a deep breath, breathe out, and do that during the day. To just during the day be aware of how you're breathing. When you go to sleep at night, there's actually, I know the New York Times probably a couple years ago ran something. about how if you're breathing intentionally, which means you're aware of your breathing, that it
Mm,
helps you fall asleep.
yes.
So the more you could get in touch with your breath and your heartbeat, the more you are aware of your body. The more you're aware of your body, the more you could keep it in balance.
And it really does help you step into power, doesn't it? When you are know that although breathing's autonomic, it's an automatic thing, you can make the changes. So I love Wim Hof for that and his teaching style. It's not some breathing I can do. I find that really difficult, but I know for many people it's excellent. You have to work with your own breath.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'm asthmatic, so I only breathe through my nose, in and out, because that keeps my balance,
Yeah.
and works well for me. So although we might get teaching, we have to just work with our bodies. So now I don't know if it's in the book or if this is something that I know because we're friends, and that is you also practice yoga. Do
Yeah.
you incorporate that into the book? I can't remember. It's a while since.
Um, you know what? Let me double check if I did, because I also, let's see, I think there's all about the breath. Yes, I do yoga nidra.
Oh, that's
And
right.
yoga
Yes.
nidra is a specific yoga.
Mhm.
I teach yoga. I don't. I teach with clients. I should say. I work more with clients medically with yoga. I don't teach it per se like a group class. But yoga nidra, all yoga is important because yoga is the best practice physically, spiritually, and mentally that you could do for yourself because the physical postures or the asanas work every bone, every muscle, every fiber in your body. It also uses the resistance of your body weight to help build strong bones. So it's great for osteoporosis
Yes. Yes.
and to build muscle strength. The spiritual side of yoga is that there's no competition. So you're not doing it for you. It's kind of an offering. And I know some people have trouble with that. And it's really not important because as you do yoga, it becomes an offering whether or not you really intend it to be or you believe that. It doesn't matter. And then it also prepares you mentally, it gives you strength and power. So originally, yoga was used in ancient traditions to prepare warriors for war,
Right.
to
Right.
get them in the mindset of going to war, of what could happen, and to be physically strong. Yoga Nidra is a yoga of relaxation. And
Mm,
what that really is your body is relaxed and almost in a sleeping state, but not really sleeping, but your mind is awake. So what happens is in Yoga Nidra, you lie down, you don't need to do anything, and you concentrate. You usually start with your left hand, your left fingers, concentrate on each finger.
mm.
Feeling the finger and just being aware that you have, your five fingers, your hand, the palm of your hand, go all the way up your arm to your shoulder, the front of your chest, the back of your chest, your leg, your left leg. And when you're in that relaxed state, you're aware of that side of your body, but you also say that side of my body is relaxed. You know, I'm in a relaxed state on the left side of my body. Then you do that with the right side of your body, and then your whole body goes into this state of relaxation. You could also do it then with breathing in and out to send energy, send the breath, send healing to all parts of your body, or if you have any specific part of your body, or you have a specific ailment or an injury or whatever. And you really just lie there for about 20 minutes
Mm.
and you let all this energy do the work, the energy of getting the body back in balance. And when I used to teach traditional yoga, I used to try to convince people, and it was difficult because Western society, we did a lot with yoga. People saw it more as exercise. And I would have people that wanted to run out of the class because at the end, we always did Shavasana, which again is the relaxation. With Yoga Nidra, you're also adding in um, the concentration and then not concentrating on
Mm.
each part of the body, if that makes sense. And I used to tell people you have to seal in your practice. The work that you did, all that energy has to get sealed in. The way to do that is to lie down and relax. And half of the class would pick up and leave. But whether you do traditional yoga or you do specifically the yoga nidra, it's really it's all about harnessing that energy, harnessing your power, and then being able to use that. So it's really all about your personal power.
Mhm.
And that's, to me, that's something that, we have that power within our heart. I say the heart is our superpower. It definitely is.
Mhm.
It also helps us with immunity because the heart lies close to the thymus gland,
Yeah.
which helps with immunity. So, compassion, gratitude, resilience, forgiveness, there's been so much research on that. Again, it helps connect us not only to the heart, but the thymus gland, which helps with boost our immunity. So, there's so many things that the heart does. In my book, I do mention two places for Yoga Nidra. You could always go online.
Yeah.
I do not, I know how to do it and I've done it with clients, but that's not my specialty. But in my book, I mention a person that does Yoga Nidra. And, if you want, I could say her name and whatnot. Um, and then my teacher, Sri Dharma Mitra from the Dharma Yoga Center, also does classes online and in person. And let me just get, Clarissa's a really, really good person. Let me just
Does
find
she
it
work
here.
online, Teresa?
Yes, she's online. Both of these are online.
Good, good.
So it would either be the Dharma Yoga Center, which is located in New York,
Right,
and they're www.dharmayogascenter.com. And then the second person is Clarissa, Alliano, and she's got a phone number and an email. It would be Clarissa0708 at AOL.com, or
right.
she's got a phone number of 917-863-3564. And she does Zoom classes
Good.
almost every day of the week. Yoga Nidra is her specialty.
Great. We'll put that in the show notes. So if you can just
Okay.
send me a message with that and we'll make sure that's in the show notes.
Yeah, and I think it's important because people, if they're interested, could do this online with either the
Yeah,
Dharma Yoga Center or Clarissa.
great.
If they're interested, if they're not.
Absolutely. And where can people buy this book? This is
My book
this is a really good pamphlet.
found probably the two easiest places. It could be found on Amazon.com or Balboa, BALBOAPRESS.com, and that's the publisher. And it also is on the Hay House online bookstore, but
Great.
that you have to search for it.
And then, so if you can send me the links for that, so those can all go in the show notes. Teresa, it's been wonderful to see you again. We've not really met much this year, so I'm really delighted that you've got this book out and that people are taking it seriously and changing their practice, which is really useful. And I hope lots of people see this interview um, and look for the book and change their lives, because I think anybody who's got any murmurs, heart murmurs, or any heart problems or any other problems, get the book before you've got any heart problems.
Yeah, well, the whole thing is kind of before we close, it from the medical side, even holistically, we always look at the heart as something could go wrong. I mean, there's heart disease, there's hypertension, like you said, there's heart problem, valves. It's like in the medical profession, we're paying attention to the heart when there's a problem. We're not paying attention to that heart. People don't see a cardiologist unless there's a heart problem. Very few people just go. Not that you really need to, But if you pay attention to your own heart and you give the heart the love and the care that it needs, that's really our self care.
Yeah.
And then you're even more aware if there is a problem that could be caught early, because now you're paying attention to your heart as a superpower and as promoting health rather than waiting for something to go wrong with it.
Absolutely. A friend of mine was telling me a little story of we've got a woodland here, a big forest, and her husband was cycling in that forest and had a heart attack. There's no cell in that area, and it was, he's fine. But it's like he'd no idea that he had the problem, even though he'd been told to have his heart checked out.
Yeah.
And I think that we should listen to our bodies, um, what we put in our bodies and what we experience with our bodies impacts our general health and well-being. And I
Yeah.
think that we always look for the outside, that somebody will make it better. No, make it better yourself, you know.
Right.
And if it means buying some books, or it means going to a yoga class, or if it means going on Google and YouTube and finding people who are sharing their knowledge and skills, then do it, because your health is, this is the vehicle of your life. Without it, you're not here. So it's important to look after it. So thank you, Teresa. Is there anything you'd like to say before we finish this podcast?
I would just like to say to people that, as you said, we look to the outside, and that's also with diet, exercise, checking our cholesterol. I'm not saying those things aren't important, but if we could change the inner landscape through compassion for ourselves and others, gratitude for ourselves and others, resilience, being resilient, going with the flow, and practicing forgiveness both to ourselves and others, we're going into that peace and calm. We're managing stress. We're changing that inner landscape, and everything starts within. So once we could change that inner landscape, we give these other things, whether it be your diet, your exercise, checking your cholesterol, whatever, even medication, we
Mm,
give that more room to work
yeah.
because we're optimally as well as we can be on the inside. So everything, regardless of what it is, everything starts within, everything starts with us. And we are really the catalyst for change. You can't change the world. The change starts with you. And it's the same thing with health. You may not be able to change some things, but you could certainly have more power, be in control with it, get yourself in the best possible shape physically, emotionally, and spiritually that you can by changing that inner landscape.
What a lovely way to end this talk. Teresa, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for writing the book. And
Thank you for
thank you
having me.
for all
And
you've done for the heart of so many, I guess, thousands of patients over the years. Thank you. Take good care.
thank you.
Bye. So I hope you enjoyed the interview with Teresa, and that she sparked an interest in you for her wonderful book. The link for this will be below. I will put the .com and the .co.uk link in there for you. But before we move on to the meditation, I wanted to talk to you about the pocketbook series. This is a multi-author series of books that you can join us. They're small books, they're about 100 pages. And my two, Renew and I Am, are workbooks, so you can write in them like a journal. We've got other books on the way, two more, hopefully very, very soon. And you will meet the authors of these books on the sofa chat, because in a sense, it's different than the book club. The pocketbook series are really economical books. We're not aiming to make great amounts of money from these. These are really affordable, and in UK pound, at the moment, they're £4.50. So you can see it's the price of a coffee, yet you get an amazing amount of knowledge from some highly skilled practitioners. So join me in writing a book if you want to. Michael Alperstein and I created videos to support you to get into the KDP University, which is the Kindle Direct Publishing. There's so much information that KDP put in for you, but what we do is show you from people who aren't necessarily highly technical. So it's in a way that we can support you. So we've got videos, and also certainly with one of the authors, I've actually directed them or showed them how to do it for themselves and supported them through Messenger or WhatsApp. So you're not alone. You're going to be with a group of people that are really powerful, knowledgeable individuals. And it is our hope next year that we will have a summit of all the authors. And this will be a pre-recorded and a Zoom call, a chat call as well. So I'm really excited for 2024 when we can get all the authors together and really offer you an amazing opportunity to join us. So if you've got a book inside you, if you've got something to say that you have got either personal experience of and you want to share your wisdom, or you are already skilled in as a trained person in some way, then please let me know, get in touch, and let's get you writing. All right, my love. Take care. Thank you. And our meditation today from Teresa's book, tool number 10. Sitting or lying down, close your eyes and place both hands over your heart. Envision a yellow light in the center of your chest. Watch as this yellow light extends to family and friends. Feel the connection. Now envision this yellow light extending to others you meet but do not know well. Feel the connection to them through this light emanating from your heart. And finally, extend this light into the universe and connect with every being. Give this light freely to all. And as you sit here bathed in that golden light, I invite you to love yourself. Love your heart. To find that compassion that Teresa talks about. And forgive yourself for anything that is bothering you. You see, we can't move on until we've forgiven ourselves. And don't worry if you can't forgive the other at this time. That comes later. So just take a few more breaths and accustom yourself to the light in the room before you open your eyes and get on with your day, remembering how amazing you are. Thank you.